A function is a block of code which performs a specific task. A function can be reused as many times as we want. So if we have to do same task again and again in a program, or we want to separate out a code which performs a specific task which will make the code neat and clean and well organized, we can use functions. In Kotlin, println, readline, toInt, etc. are predefined functions. It means they are already written in the Kotlin library. These functions are part of the core language and can be used in Kotlin projects without any extra setup. For example, println is a predefined function provided by the Kotlin standard library for printing text to the console. In Kotlin, you can create your own functions. The functions created by programmers are called as user-defined functions. Here is the syntax for creating your own function. Let's create a function which just prints some text. Here we are giving the name say hello to the function. You can give any name here. And just print, hello. This function doesn't return any value and doesn't have any parameters. Also, it doesn't need to have a return type. To call a function, type the function name and parentheses, and pass the parameters if it takes any. The function doesn't take any parameter value, so we don't need to pass any value to it. Let's create another function which will say welcome to a user. This function will have a parameter and will take a value called username. This value is also known as argument. Then we are just printing welcome and the username. Here we need to pass a value for the username to the function. A value is passed at the time of calling the function. We are passing John as the username. And it says welcome John. Alright. Now let's try implementing a function for adding two numbers. This function will take two parameters, n1 and n2, as we have to add two numbers. As per the syntax, we need to give the type of the parameters, which is int here. And also in this function, we will return the addition, so we need to specify the return type also, which will be int, and then we just say, return n1 plus n2. Now we call the function and pass two numbers. The function will return the addition of the two numbers, so we will store that addition in a variable. And then just print the variable. In Kotlin, you can also define a function in just one line. These functions are called one-liner functions. When a function's body can be written in a single line, you can write such function. Let's try this. Let's make a one-liner function for multiplying two numbers. Here we don't need to type a return type of the function. Kotlin infers the return type and allows you to omit the curly braces. Now let's call the function. Alright. A class in Kotlin is like a blueprint or a template that defines the properties and behavior of objects. It's a way to organize your code in a structured manner. In this example, we have a car class with properties like brand, model, and year. It also has a method called startEngine. An object is an instance of a class. It's like creating a real-world object based on the blueprint we defined in the class. Let's see how it's done. In this example, we created an object called myCar from the car class. We then set its properties and called the startEngine method. Finally, we printed information about the car. Let's create a class student which has properties student name, roll number, and grade. Here we are initializing student name and grade to empty string and roll number to 0. Now let's create an object of the class S, and set values for the object S like student name equals John, roll number equals 83, and grade equals A. Now let's print the properties. Alright. Let's create a method to print the properties. Here we creating a class method, showInfo, to display the properties of the class for an object. A constructor is like a special method that gets called when you create an object from a class. It's responsible for initializing the object's properties. The constructor is declared right after the class name and lets you initialize properties directly. Let's take the previous example. Here we were setting the student name, roll number, and grade using the object name and the dot operator. Now we will use constructor for this task. As we learned, constructor is like a special method and is defined right after the class name using the parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, we write the parameters it takes. Here we get the student name, roll number, and grade. Now let's initialize the values. We are assigning the value of the parameter sname to the class variable sname and others the same way. Let's change the name of the parameters so that we will not get confused. Now let's pass the values to the constructor. Alright. It's working.